Welcome to Brewing Today, sponsored by the Beer Loons, where you can find a plethora of brewing information at beerloons.com. Hi, everyone. I am your host, Mike Campbell, and welcome to Brewing Today. Are you all set to talk about some home brewing? As you know, the reason this show was created was to help fellow homebrewers out. What makes me such a homebrew expert? I'm sure you've asked that question. Simple. I've been brewing for over 16 years, and I've worked at a homebrew supply shop for 9 years. I brew almost every week and have done so for many, many years. And the simple truth is, I love to brew. So don't fall for that BS that is out there from the guys who have brewed maybe 20 times and are now calling themselves experts. We're seeing a lot of that, unfortunately, with so many people being laid off and out of work. And it's really kind of creating some integrity issues, I believe, in the homebrew world, because so many folks are out there trying to maybe make a living at doing this and just really aren't to the stage that they're qualified at this point. Not to say that they don't have good information necessarily, but I see it a lot with reviews and brewing advice, to be quite honest. And it's something that I just wanted to put out there. You know, I've done this for a while. I know how to brew. The information on this show is based on hundreds of batches of beer brewed by myself. I figured out that I brewed over 500 beers in the last 16 years. Now it's time to give back to the community that I love so much. That's why I do these shows. Today we're going to be talking about the Dopplebock style of beer. I like to talk about specific styles of beer when it comes to brewing because so few people know what goes into a specific style of beer. This way it may help you become a better brewer or more comfortable with creating your own recipes. That's another focus with this show is, getting the information out there, the education out there, whether it's a bacteria, whether it's a certain strain of yeast, whether it's the style of beer itself. I see time and time again where people are good brewers, they make good beers, they just don't know much about the style itself. So we're going to put a lot of that information in here and take some time talking about it. But before we get started, don't forget to call our beer line at 512-827-0505, extension 4901, with any questions, ideas, or whatever you can think of. Now, I want to thank the BJCP for providing definitions of styles on their website. I'm going to be using a lot of their information on the show today, and I wanted to make sure they got proper credit. To be in all fairness to them, because they wrote a lot of this information, I'm going to put my pieces in there as well. But if you're not familiar with the BJCP, they are the Beer Judge Certificate Program. And they do a lot of the beer competitions around the country that you might be aware of, especially the homebrew competitions. They're the ones that kind of set what the style is, what should go into the style, things like that. So their website, bjcp.org, has all this information listed as well. But I'm going to kind of break it down or go into maybe a little more in-depth look at some of this. So like I say, today's Dopplebock. So let's go right in there. First off is the aroma. It should have a very strong maltiness to it, or sweetness. Darker versions can have significant malanoidins and often some toasty aromas. Light caramel flavor from a long boil is acceptable. There's virtually no hop aroma, although a light noble hop aroma is acceptable in pale versions. There is no diacetyl. If you're not familiar with diacetyl, that is a kind of a buttery note to a beer. A moderately low fruity aspect to the aroma, often described as prune, plum, or grape, may be present, certainly not required. In the dark versions, due to reactions with malt, the boil, and aging. So this is somewhat common if you have a darker version of a Dopplebock. A very slight chocolate-like aroma may be present in darker versions, but no roasted or burned aromatic should ever be present. So you don't want super burnt smells. It shouldn't smell like a stout, basically. And moderate alcohol aroma may be present if you notice it, because Doppelbocks are double bocks, so they're going to have more malt, they're going to have more alcohol, they're going to have more sweetness to them. In the appearance, it should be anywhere from a dark gold to a dark brown in color. Darker versions often have ruby highlights, so kind of like on the edge of the glass there. You expect to see maybe some ruby, reddish colors. Lagering should provide good clarity. These beers are typically very clear, but they don't necessarily have to be. Large, creamy, persistent head. Obviously, color varies with the base style. White for pale versions, off-white for darker varieties. Stronger versions might have impaired head retention and can display noticeable legs. In the flavor, should be very rich and malty. I mean, you're not going to notice the hops in this one. This is not a pale ale. This is a Dopplebock. Darker versions will have significant malnoidins and often some toasty flavors. Lighter versions, just like we said, kind of in the aroma, will have a strong malt flavor with some malnoidins and toasty notes. A very slight chocolate flavor is optional in darker versions, but should never be perceived as roasty or burnt. So it should taste not like dark chocolate. It should taste. I know there's other versions of chocolate than like milk chocolate and dark chocolate, but it's not like milk chocolate in the sweetness, but it's not dark chocolate either. Again, clean lager flavor, shouldn't stay on the tongue very long. No diacetyl. Some fruitiness is okay, like prune, plum, or grape. Because they're double box, they're higher in alcohol. Sometimes there will be impression of alcoholic strength, but it should be smooth and warming rather than harsh or burning. It shouldn't taste like you just did a shot of Jack. It should be very smooth or very much a part of the beer. Presence of higher alcohol or fusels should be very low to none. Little to no hop flavor. More is acceptable in pale versions. Hop bitterness varies from moderate to moderately low, but always allows malt to dominate the flavor. Most versions are fairly sweet, but should have an impression of attenuation. Attenuation is basically the fermentation of the beer. It's going to stay malty, it's going to stay sweet, but the beer should taste like it fermented. Sweetness comes from low hopping, not from incomplete fermentation. And paler versions generally have a drier finish. The mouthfeel should be medium full to full body, moderate to moderately low carbonation, and very smooth without harshness or astringency in the mouthfeel of that bad boy. Give you a little history. This is a Bavarian specialty first brewed in Munich by the monks of St. Francis of Paula. Historical versions were less well attenuated than modern interpretations, with consequently higher sweetness and lower alcohol levels. And this is why you might hear the term of a liquid bread. These are very thick, heavy-bodied beers that the monks would drink, especially in times of fasting. The term Doppel or Doublebock was coined by Munich consumers. Many Doppelbocks have names ending in "ader," either as a tribute to the prototypical Salvator or to take advantage of the beer's popularity. Here's for you homebrewer folks. We've thrown a lot of information at you, but ingredient-wise, Pils and or Vienna malt for paler version. May use a little Munich as well. Munich and Vienna malts for darker ones, and occasionally a tiny bit of a darker color malt such as Carafa. You see chocolate malt in some of the American versions. You will use noble hops. Water hardness varies from soft to moderately carbonate. Whatever you want with that. Clean lager yeast and decoction mashing is traditional. For those of you that do all grain versions, your original gravity should be 1072 to 1.112, so very, very high in the original gravity. Final gravity should finish about 1016 to 1024, so that's where you get your malty sweetness from. Alcohol by volume should be 7 to 10%. IBU should be somewhere between 16 to 26 in the bitterness scale, and the color scale should be anywhere from 6 to 25. For those that maybe want to make their own recipes. If you're not familiar with this style, some commercial examples are Paulaner Salvator, Eyinger Celebrator, Spaten Optimator, or Tommyknocker Butthead is an example that we did on the Brew For You show. That's going to do it for our show today, and don't forget about our craft beer reviews on the Brew For You show, now shortened to 5 minutes or less. Thank you for spending time with us this week, and until next time, cheers.